Just aside from leads, what like short-term or long-term projects do you think agents should be investing their time and money in right now to ensure not only their survival but also their success in the business, in the industry?
Well, whenever we talk about a buyer or a seller, the key word is the motivation of the client. Okay, what is the motivation of that prospect to buy or sell? And agents often, they shy away from pressing to find the motivation, because the fear is if I press too hard and they're not motivated, then I don't have a lead. And I'd rather have a lead that's never going to do anything so I can say I have a lead than press and find out I don't have a lead. So it's one of those catch-22s in our crazy industry. So what I'm telling agents today is very simple. Pre-qualify every lead in depth. And those that want to do something now would go in bucket letter A. Right now, people, whether it be a virtual listing presentation, a virtual showing, or taking them to a house, which in some states is very legal to do. And you got to work with those people today because their motivation is there. But bucket B is the ones that we are concerned about, because these are the people that are saying, I want to do something, but I want to wait until the coronavirus has passed. Well, it's going to be a long wait because it's not going to pass by quickly. So bucket B is the accumulation of names. Every 7 to 10 days, emails, texts, phone calls, market information, neighborhood reports, because see, there is a point where the floodgate will open up again. And these people in bucket B will come back into the market fast. We want them to come back to your agents, but they'll only come back to the agents that they feel a relationship with. So building that relationship over the next 30, 60, 90 days is really vitally important to the agent's right now success, and I believe their long-term success. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Good.
Couldn't agree more. We have a lot of people right now as well that are taking on the social media challenge, that they might have been on there before, but they weren't necessarily as involved as they should be, and quite a few of them are making the market reports and, informing their clients, just like you said, right? So that when the time comes, when the surge comes, they're the name that comes up first, the one that was remembered that led them through this time. So, work like that, obviously, it takes a level of commitment, of great commitment. And unless you're able to work someplace where you're completely alone, distractions are bound to happen, either whether you're working from home right now or whether you've started coming back to the office. So Mike, what type of schedule do you recommend that agents stick to in order to still have a productive day, no matter where they're working from?
So how many agents do you guys have in the company today, approximately?
60 something. I forget the exact number.
So we'll just use the number 60. So I'm going to throw this question out. Can you imagine if 60 agents each actually put in 3 hours a day of productive time? The production of the company would go through the roof. Because see, a real estate office is what I call a safe haven. You can kiss your spouse goodbye in the morning, see you later, I'm off to work, say goodbye to your kids. And you go to a place where you can look like you're doing something and never do anything. Because the real estate office is a safe haven. You can be on Facebook, you can be on social media, you can go to Starbucks, you're talking to your friends, you can work on your one deal for 3 or 4 hours and nobody's going to disturb you. And it's a social activity as well as business. That all disappears when you work from home, because whether you have a spouse or children, they're looking at you, and that's not always comfortable in terms of a work ethic. So what I'm recommending the agents do, 8:30, 8:45, it's going to sound strange to you. I'm recommending agents have a family sales meeting, and they bring the family together and say, here's what I need. From 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock, I need 1 hour uninterrupted time to do my job. And if I do my job, I'm going to be able to produce the income that we need. Then at 10 o'clock, I'll take 30, 40 minutes. If you have children, be with the kids, the school work, etc. The spouse, make sure everything is taken care of in the house. 11 o'clock, 1 more hour invested. Then take a break until 1 o'clock and then do 1 more hour. If we can get every agent to just put in 3 hours a day of productive activity, they're going to be okay in terms of their income and their production. But see, the hardest part of the home environment is they can't get up and walk away, which they can do in a real estate office. If somebody's bugging them, they can say, excuse me, I got to run to the restroom. Excuse me, I got to run to my car. Excuse me, I got to run to Starbucks. In the house, it's like the joke that I saw this guy say, Easter Sunday, I have a big dilemma. I don't know where to go to have dinner. Should I do it in the living room or in the kitchen? Well, that's the environment we work in today. So the scheduling really becomes a discipline issue more than anything else. And this is a real opportunity for agents to display a little self-discipline as to those 3 1-hour blocks.
Right. Discipline. Couldn't agree with you more right there. Discipline is absolute key. Even outside of our real estate business, it just leads to a better life. There's a lot of coaches right now as well that are reminding people about physical, mental, emotional health. And, that all starts with discipline, right? Getting up in the morning,
Yes.
doing your yoga, meditating, whatever it is that you do, having a healthy breakfast, exercising, which we all could always do more of. So excellent point. I guess moving on to a different subject here. Some sellers, are afraid of the virus. Some are afraid of market changes. They're finicky. They're nervous. So when somebody responds right now with, I just don't think it's the right time, what do you say? What specific, information would you give them to show that it actually could be the right time?
Well, I think there's a couple issues in play here. I think issue number one is the natural fear that people have. You'll get a kick out of this. I had a broker say to me last week, Mike, when in our lifetime have we ever had a circumstance where we could walk out of our front door of our home or walk out of office, touch something, and get a disease? We've never imagined that in our lives prior, and that's the circumstances we have today. Unlikely as it would ever happen, it could happen. So the natural fear that people are experiencing is called normal, and the more home isolated they are, the bigger the fears become. But we're going to talk about pricing for just a minute. I had a person say to me last week, with this pandemic continuing, are we going to see prices drop? No. Because the biggest advantage, now I've been doing this 45 years. I've never had a point in my career with all of the people I get to work with where low inventory is advantageous, because a low inventory solidifies the prices. When inventory is real high, 2007 to 2012, prices fell through the floor, especially throughout the state of California. So we're not in a 2007 to 2012 environment. It's a different environment. So what we have to say to buyers, it is the best time to buy, because when the pandemic ends, prices will go up. And we have to say to sellers, it is the best time to sell, because we have a lot of buyers and a limited inventory. So the longer you wait, the less chance you have of being part of this very strong market we have today. So we have to believe that this is the right thing for a buyer and seller. But I believe that it's the right thing for a buyer and a seller right now. Okay, and I use this example. My wife and I are buying properties in Las Vegas as we speak, because we feel that the future, the prices will continue to rise. So the agent has to believe that doing this job for the seller today is really vitally important. It solidifies the seller's price in a very good market for a buyer to buy in, and it helps a buyer make a decision faster because of a limited inventory. It's the old law of supply and demand in economics. Okay, I mean, who would have thought? Now, this is people smile when I say this. Who would have thought that 60 days ago we would have a shortage of toilet paper? Of all things to be, now think about it, okay? I mean, a shortage of toilet paper, for goodness sakes. Well, that problem has been solved because now they produce more toilet paper, and now toilet paper is regular prices versus paying $10 a roll. So we have to have the agents up here be convinced this really is the right time for both the buyer and the seller because of the shortage of inventory. It's a perfect market for a buyer and seller today.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about everybody else here on this Zoom meeting, but if I was thinking about selling my home and I heard that speech right there, I think I definitely move forward and put it up on the
Absolutely.
market. So I think one of the doubts that's kind of out there right now, that, like you said, right, the agents, they have to believe that it actually is the right time to sell, and then that will just, that confidence will rub off on the sellers. So one of the doubts that I've kind of heard about is the unemployment rate. Do you think that unless the unemployment rate, like quickly falls back down to the 7.5 that we're used to, do you think that's going to affect the housing market at all? If people can't make payments because they're not working?
Well, it's interesting you should ask that, because I had this conversation yesterday with 3 brokers here in Las Vegas. Obviously, the casinos are a major employer, and they're discussing when they're going to open up again. I mean, like the Wynn and the Encore employ 15,000 people.
Wow.
The MGM Grand Hotel has 7,500 employees. Venetian Palazzo has 12,000 employees in that building. So you can imagine the impact that unemployment is having on Vegas. But here's the good news. The community of Las Vegas opened up about 10 days ago. So all of a sudden, all the people that work in regular jobs are back to work, which is going to drop the unemployment rate over the next 30, 60 days back down to a more reasonable number. So I think the unemployment rate will take care of itself as a problem as the economies in the local communities keep opening up, which they're doing. And that's the name of the game. We live in Las Vegas, as you know, and then we also have a home in Newport Beach because that's where my kids live. So we went over for the weekend, and I wanted to see Tom and Matt and Michelle and Pat and all the kids because we haven't seen them in 2 months. And it was interesting. All the restaurants were back open. The shopping center was open. Well, whether they're open at full capacity or half, that affects the unemployment rate in a positive manner. So as long as people are doing the social distancing and wearing the masks and being cautious, the businesses will remain open. And when business is open, people are going to spend their money. When they spend their money, it keeps the employer and the employees happy, which means unemployment should work in our favor over the next 30, 60 days. That's a long answer for it's probably not going to have a big effect on real estate. Okay. But I wanted the agents to understand where I was coming from.
Yeah,
That was a
definitely.
great question. Great question. I'm glad you asked.
Thank you. So I guess just to close up on that subject there, to one of the other doubts, I guess I should say, like tenants slowing down the process. Sometimes also like other agents out there are not following the right health protocols,
Yes.
and also slowing down the process. Just general obstacles, you can kind of tell here and there are causing some agents to just like lose some motivation and some faith in their business. So, if you had somebody like that in front of you right now, what would you tell them?
Well, the big debate is how much should we say to somebody if they're not following what you and I would say is common sense guidelines. And I said to Sabrina this morning, our office opened up yesterday, but we only can have the employees that have a private office in the office for the first 2 weeks. So out of our 50 employees, we have 14 here, and we all are in private offices. And if we leave, we put our masks on to walk around the office and so forth. I mean, when is the last time you could wear a mask and weren't arrested for being a bad guy? So it's kind of an interesting time for our lives. But I think that, and I'm going to say 3 words that I want your agents to accept: empathy, kindness, and understanding are the most important 3 words in our business lives today, especially real estate. Empathy for the buyers and sellers that are tired of the restrictions, understanding that they're going to be a little more aggressive today than they would have been 60, 90 days ago when things were smooth. And then, of course, being kind to the fact that some people simply don't like following the rules on anything. That's why the police give tickets for speeding, okay? So, then you have to add the words common sense into this whole thing. So I told a group yesterday, some of these marketplaces, you can still show property the way we used to. I said, think about this. I would say the buyer comes in at 10 o'clock on Saturday morning. They're fully qualified, pre-approved by the lender. You've selected 3 or 4 good homes to show them. You say to the buyer, we have 2 choices. We can spend the next 3 or 4 hours together looking at property, which I'm willing to do, and I want to invest that time. We'll have to take separate cars for social distancing purposes. Or what I can do is I can take 20 minutes and show you all 5 properties virtually, and then we can select the 1 or 2 that make the most sense for you. Which would you like to do? And the buyer says, well, if we can see them in advance, then we'll select 1 or 2. Good, now I've just saved hours of time for them and I. The fallacy in real estate, and this will bring a smile to your face, the fallacy is real estate people actually believe the public wants to be with them all the time. That is crazy, okay? The public has a life to live. So, I interviewed a gal last week in Scottsdale, very heavy traffic marketplace, like being in any major city. She took 3 listings in 90 minutes, did all 3 presentations virtually. She had the pre-listing package sent to them virtually, DocuSign to sign the contracts. It took her 90 minutes for 3 listings, and she said it would have taken 9 to 10 hours in traffic if I wouldn't have done it virtually. So now it's a matter of up here, us accepting the fact that we may not have to be confronting people on social distancing, not wearing masks, if we understand that people are just excited to be able to be out of their home, okay? So more understanding, more empathy, more kindness, more common sense. But I will tell you that, for Sabrina and I, I'm 75 years old. If we go to the grocery store, I stay in the car because I don't want to be in a crowd because my age, they say I'm more susceptible, okay? We went and saw Tom and Kathy and Patrick and the kids on Saturday at Tom and Kathy's house. And Michael was one of my favorite grandsons, said, well, Grandpa, are you going to be here for an hour? I said, tell me why. I've got 6 friends coming over. I said, I'm leaving because I don't know the exposure his 6 friends have had. And if they're 21 years old, they're probably doing things that I don't want to know about, A, and B, I don't want to be exposed to the people that I'm exposed to. So, I said to Michael, I love you to death. I'll see you next weekend. And we left, okay? And Tom laughed because he understood. So it's a lot of common sense has to be applied in this crazy environment. And as this curve has flattened and started to decline in most parts of the country, which is why things are opening up, more common sense has to be applied. That's a great question. I'm glad you asked that. Thank you.
Thank you. So you mentioned the virtual open houses, right? And it seems highly likely that some of those new virtual components of our industry, they're just going to be around to stay, even long after the virus is dealt with. Because like you said, it really does make life easier to be able to get people, like you said, right, to tour the house online and then see if they actually want to go and see it in person. So which of the current virtual components do you think are just absolutely crucial to nail down right now as to not get left behind in the way that the industry is moving forward?
Well, I think, it's interesting. We are a high technology industry that has almost total ignorance of technology, because, and where you folks live, you're close to the Silicon Valley, which is the heartbeat of technology. And yet 90% of the agents, they can't even answer their cell phone without dropping a call. So I think the first thing we have to do is get a basic understanding of things like Zoom, okay? It's because this communication tool for you and I'm in Las Vegas, you're up in Northern California, we're probably 500 miles apart, and we're sitting like we're sitting in my office face to face, which makes this technology so great. And it really is an advantage. So obviously they can prospect virtually because they can use their phone. But here's what's interesting. One of the favorite places for Sabrina and I to go is Carmel, because I love the golf course. So we go twice a year. We spend 3 or 4 days playing golf. Almost all those magnificent homes are second and third homes. They're not primary residences that are on that ocean and the golf course on 17 Mile Drive. Well, what we have to understand is 20% of all the transactions in America for the last 20 years have been done virtually. Now, it was old-fashioned, phone and fax. And now, of course, it's Zoom and DocuSign. So what we're learning is that the 20%, which is the mountain ski resorts, the desert resorts, the golf resorts, the ocean resorts, it's always been a virtual market because that's the only way you can operate. Best example, we have a home in Newport Beach, we have a home in Las Vegas, we had a home in Naples, Florida. And a couple of years ago, we decided because of the kids being in the West, we would sell that home. So we listed it for sale virtually with an agent that we work with in Naples, Florida. The showings, we weren't there for them. The showings took place. They presented the offer virtually. We signed the contract virtually. We signed all the paperwork and the escrow virtually, and it closed. We were never even part of the transaction except for what we're doing right here today. So I think what the agents have to understand is learning basic fundamentals are critical, and then accepting the fact that I really believe in 3 or 4 years, 50% of all deals will be done like this because of the efficiency and the time savings to buyers and sellers. I mean, watch, do you really have to go to the mortgage company to sign the paperwork? No. Do you have to go to the title company to sign escrow papers? No. And the time savings is going to be the big factor. So I'm excited about the future. I told Sabrina last week, I have about 15 years left of this kind of work that I do. We're going to see at least 2 more downfalls in the economy in the next 15 years. And for every downfall, we come out stronger, bigger, better, faster than we were before. So this downfall we're experiencing today is going to make our lives long-term much better than it was before. I'm excited about the future.
Yeah, definitely. You know, some of the things we're doing here as well at the office is just trying to get everybody in tune with Zoom, with social media, DocuSign,
Yes.
you know, just because, just like you said, and you used the example of buying a car in one of the webinars we watched a couple of weeks ago, where it doesn't take that long. It takes, you know, you can walk out of the dealership with the car in just an hour, but it takes 20 plus days to get your get your home
Well,
bought.
you know,
So uh,
let me give you an example of that. In Fashion Island in Newport Beach,
yeah,
Tesla has a showroom, and next to now this isn't a retail high-end mall, and next Lincoln has a showroom. So for the fun of it, a few months ago, we walked into the Lincoln showroom at the mall. Now, you know, it's next to Nordstrom's and Neiman Marcus, so it's not in a bad neighborhood from any perspective. Said to the sales guy, who owns this? He goes, Lincoln. I said, a dealership? He said, no, are you interested? I said, we're interested in a Navigator. So he had 2, he showed us, took us for a test drive. He wrote down everything that we wanted in a car. He said, are you ready to make a decision? I said, yes, we are. Where do you live? Las Vegas. Here's the dealership I want you to go to. They'll be there tomorrow at 2 o'clock. They'll have the car prepared for you. Just sign the paperwork. We drove into the dealership. 10 minutes later, we took the new car and drove out. That's what our life is going to be like, which talk about saving time. Okay. So I think your example is really a good example.
yeah, definitely. I mean, if you can imagine a world where, I mean, you know, we've seen, I mean, it's possible to get these things done in much less time, in half the time. So if you can imagine a world where it only takes, let's just be generous and say it takes a week. You know, if we can get the time down to a week from the moment an offer is made to the moment you're receiving the keys, just think of all the extra clients, you know, the leads, the prospecting that you can use the extra time for. And all of a sudden,
That's
you know, you're able to make
that's
more
it.
money at the end of the day.
It's a great point, and I hope all of your agents are paying attention to what you're saying. That's for sure.
So Mike, you know, it's we've seen a couple of your webinars already that you've been able to do with other people. And, you know, no matter when we see you, you're always smiling, you're always staying positive, right? And I know you get this question every time, but it's always great to hear the answer. Staying positive is it's absolutely key to good business, you know? So what changes can we make to our business models, to our business routines, and just to our day-to-day lives to ensure that we remain as positive as possible, week in and week out.
You know, it's funny. I'm going to send a message out later this morning to my coaching clients. And what I'm going to talk to them about is the numbers. And when I say the numbers, I'm going to ask our coaching clients, and this would be a good exercise for your team also. I'm going to ask them to say, okay, answer for me. How many agents in the marketplace? How many listings in a normal month over the course of a year? How many listings sold by or sales in the course of a month, in the course of a year? And then I'm going to ask this question: how many of those would you like to have? Because there's a group of transactions in every city, every county, every state, every day that take place, no matter whether the economy is going straight up or straight down. So the reason I want them to do that is I want them to be able to see there is business to be done. Then the second part of the email I'm going to send out this morning is revolve around the word choice, because every day we have a choice. And the name Earl Nightingale was my mentor as I was growing up. And Earl said to me one day, he was at our home in Huntington Beach, California at the time, and he had came by to see the kids' mom, and Matt and Tom were, I think Matt and Tom were like 7 and 4 at that time. And I'll never forget, Earl Nightingale said, every morning when you wake up, you have a choice. Roll over, go to sleep, or get up. When you get up, you have a choice. Do something productive, non-productive. When you're doing something and something goes wrong, you have a choice, react positive or negative. And then he looked at me and said, Michael, because he had that deep voice, try to make really good choices every day. So I have built my life, my career, on trying to make good choices. And those choices revolve around things like the books I read, the people I spend my time with. This is my 136th webinar I've done since March 17th, okay, today, this one with you folks. That's a choice, and I really am enjoying this a lot because I get to see a lot of people I don't get to see often, that I couldn't see if it was a live seminar. But it also allows me to spread the news that there are good choices to make. And it's individually deciding, how do you want to see the things that I say? Do you want to see them as positive or negative? And that's a choice you have to make. So I've just been driven all my life to read every day, which I do. This crazy thing called an iPad, for somebody like me, this is like a blessing. I mean, twice a day, I'll go onto YouTube and I watch a Darren Hardy, I watch a Tony Robbins, a Brian Tracy, a Zig Ziglar for 10 or 15 minutes because it makes you feel so good about what you're doing. So the other thing that my wife kids about all the time is she goes, Mike wears an invisible negativity helmet around his head. If people are negative, he smiles, he nods his head, and he doesn't listen because he doesn't let it in. So, and that's a choice we have to make. So I'm hoping that what you and I are doing today will help your agents make better choices until this thing starts to, go away from us, which it eventually will.